experts testing theories. So it seems we might be moving towards trying to understand the survival brain and what I'm calling not human nature but survival nature. and how to test theories instead of relying on ideas rooted in best intentions. It seems some of those Chris Voss and his team repeatedly talk about how some of that is they're realizing and accepting more and more that a lot of theories in communication really are the best methods they've found seem to be rooted in neurology on the survival brain. So so other experts, I'm gonna say in the spy industry, if I remember correctly, and I don't, closest I might try to say is about the 1960s or so. Russian spies were making American soldiers, Navy, Air Force, happy to talk about secrets. And many have been working to improve that for many decades. And some of that now I was going to mention, I often quote Andrew Bustamante, a former CIA spy, though many have gone to spy school without being a CIA spy. And so one of those is Chase Hughes, a Navy spy, U.S. military, and who went to spy school to learn some of these different ideas about using different skills to ask questions to make people happy to talk or happy to answer questions. And that's important because Socrates was sentenced to death for asking questions. And so many have been working to improve asking questions. What happens in the brain, I don't know who, I heard somebody saying that they've found that everybody is negative, the asker and the askee or counterpart is negatively triggered, feeding adrenaline and I forget now some of the other neurochemicals. So some of these so Chase talks about some of the work he's done to improve asking questions and what they call eliciting information. or responses. He's studied Cesar Millan, and he doesn't name the book, though he says, and I've looked it up, Cesar Millan seems to have written several books. Chase says Cesar Millan has one of the best leadership books. And that makes sense to me, the Dog Whisperer, because of what I consider to be important is the survival nature seems to cross barriers between people and animals, or any mammal with a heartbeat. Seems the skills applies across any mammal with a heartbeat of our survival nature. So I look forward to studying Cesar Millan's books, several books, to see what he has to say about communicating with dogs. And I know this sounds crazy though. I might touch on 23 years ago when I lived on an acreage outside of Rocky Mountain House, Alberta. I had a deer crossing my driveway at the same time every day. More accurate than my watch. And I could see him through my kitchen window at the dinner table. And so I just about 21 years, I wondered what would drive a deer to cross my driveway at the same time the grouse is eating berries at my kitchen window on the berried bush. And walking down my driveway, I could see that the deer usually stepped in the same footsteps it had the day before. So, and then after about 21 years, I theorized, the deer might see and smell the wolf, though it might never cross paths with the wolf. And equally true, the wolf is addicted to its habits for its survival nature, because the wolf has to stay on schedule for its routine so that it might survive, because if it stops to eat every deer, or this deer, it might miss on the next opportunity to meet its next timeline. And so and I thought my theory on why my deer would cross my driveway at the same time every day, and shortly thereafter, about a year or so later, I found a Facebook meme of Sammy the seal. Sammy the Irish seal would come out of the ocean, over the harbor, cross the street, and beg at the restaurant for a hamburger daily at 9 a.m., 1 p.m., 4 p.m. every day. Sammy the seal would go to the restaurant, beg for a hamburger every day. And that helped me better understand our addiction to our habits, good or bad, and so making it difficult for us to change our habits. Because our survival depends on our routines. And so now I feel it's important for me to study Caesar Milan, the dog whisperer, and I agree with Chase Hughes on a lot of topics, and it feels this helps me make the correlation to the survival brain Chris Voss talks about, looking for and testing theories against the survival brain using neurology. Feels I've maybe overcomplicated my attempt at explaining the importance of looking to experts. I'll be doing more videos on experts. What I've and rooted in a military lesson where we often, in the military, we often look to SMEs, subject matter experts. And those subject matter experts in any field always have somebody with more and different information, or curious enough to find different and better information, or what might be better information. And when we have different, or find different, or curious to look for different information, it seems we should be testing those theories against the survival brain, and or against some of the best information from the best experts, and testing all of that. And I shouldn't say all of that, because like rocketry doesn't rely on the survival brain, though going to Mars might be important to study how a person reacts whose theory, those theories might have to be tested and pushed against the survival brain to see how the survival brain might force somebody to react, and either in space, or going to Mars, or landing on Mars, or living on Mars. But the rocketry itself, to design a rocket, doesn't really, I don't think, needs to be tested against the survival brain. But and that might be an example of where we got to test theories in rocketry to design those rockets against accepted theories, to challenge accepted theories. And I would, feels like the same might be said about challenging theories in communication and or in mental health. So I might end on that. Comment down below what you feel might be how to test experts. What really makes an expert? Anyway, thanks. Good night.